Hello everybody, I'm Raphael Perry and it's time once again for an update on the Bloodsword computer game. Now this update technically came out a day ago, but I tend to get less views on a Sunday than on a Monday, so I'm posting it now. In this class update we focus on the Sage, the final of the 4 classes from the original series. Although I'm led to believe there are new character classes coming, so we'll have to wait and see if we get information on them closer to release, or if they remain shrouded in mystery. Now, the Sage, classically, was basically a sort of Friar Tuck monk type character, proficient with staff and bow, but let's get to the update and see what information we have here. Some adventurers master steel, others the arcane. The Sage seeks mastery of both body and spirit. Sages are not bound to one place alone. Some hail from the monastery of Illumination on Caxos, where Spartan training hardens both mind and flesh. These are island ascetics, pale-robed monks who endure silence and hardship to wield the staff of both weapon and discipline. Others walk from the deserts of Opalar, where mystics temper philosophy with survival and zeal. They are guardians and visionaries, heirs to southern traditions of astronomy, poetry, and holy lore, yet as quick to raise a quarterstaff as a prayer. In Bloodsword, the Sage walks 2 traditions. That of the warrior monk, trained in endurance and combat, these sages master the quarterstaff, break nerve points with trained strikes, and shield allies with chants and mantras. They embody strength through discipline, turning willpower into armor. So I'm seeing a slightly more mystical aspect here than they had in the original series. But we'll get to that, because I'm going to have a bit of a talk, okay, about the role the Sage originally played. That of the mystic scholar. These sages pierce the veil of the unseen. They sense thoughts, glimpse the future, see through fog and shadow, and banish spirits that linger too long. They heal the wounded, dispel curses, and in rare moments rise from death like the phoenix itself. Okay, that last one, that may be very new indeed. Both paths share the same foundation. Wisdom tempered by hardship, power sharpened by restraint. Whether in battle or in silence, the Sage is the still centre of the storm. And of course, we're going to play our usual guessing game of guessing which icon relates to which skill. The discipline of the Sage. Premonition unlocks ESP and paranormal sight, letting you read surface thoughts and see through mist, water, or curtains. I'm going to go with this swirly head one, even though it looks a little confusing, and this looks more like Mystic Sight, but the skulls appear to maybe relate to another one of the others. Right here, Exorcism. Banishes ghosts and wraiths, silencing what should not linger. I'm reckoning that one with the skulls for Exorcism. Occult lore reveals the meaning of runes, symbols, and forgotten relics in story encounters. I reckon that's got to be this one right here. Levitation lets you bypass obstacles, rise above danger, or confound enemies. I think that's got to be the feather. Mind over body grants up to +6 endurance, anchoring spirit to flesh. Right, up to imply. I think that's going to be mind over body. 3 of 3. So you could invest 3 skill points into it. Tranquil Spirit strengthens your psychic ability by up to +2, a shield against the supernatural. This then, none of 2, this could be Tranquil Spirit. Quarterstaff technique rolls 3 dice instead of 2, striking harder and forcing enemies to lose their next action. That is indeed an old ability the Sage used to have in the old books. Oh yeah, I got PDFs ready. I said there'd be a bit of a talk about the healing ability in particular. And this is causing him to take his next action at the end of the following round. That is, so this is where it gets tricky, right? The old version of Quarterstaff technique wouldn't make your enemy lose their action, but they would shift to the end of the following round, meaning if they were lower in the initiative order than you, they would lose their action, and in the next round they wouldn't act until the end of that round. But if they were before you this round, then they'd just be going last next round. So they still get their action, they just get it later on. So having a straight up lose your next action seems fairer than having to keep track of if they were faster or slower than you as to work out how effective it would be. Healing restores some endurance to allies, channeled through the cosmic flux. We will definitely be speaking about that, but I'm going to save that till after the rest. For healing, I want to save this one. No, this is going to be... well, no, wait. 3 of 3? Could be healing still. The bandages around the hand make a lot of sense for healing, because of the sacrificial nature of the skill. Mantra of Salvation halves all incoming damage for 4 turns. A bulwark in desperate hours. I want to say... so, Mantra of Salvation halves damage. If we got one of these two, what else have we got? Dazzle. We can't have Dazzle for this or this. So Dazzle... that doesn't look bright enough for that. So if that's Mantra of Salvation, then this would be Dazzle. Blinds foes in a burst of light, lowering their prowess and awareness. And Mirage summons an illusory clone to draw enemy attacks. Oh, so this would be Mirage then. So that could be Dazzle. And then this Mantra of Salvation. Okay. That looks like multiple helmets though. So, before we get on to the nature of healing, Mantra of Salvation sounds really helpful. When it says halves all incoming damage, we don't know for certain if this is just damage coming into the Sage, if it can target a single party member and protect them instead so they are taking half damage, or maybe even half damage for the entire party. Regardless, it's a very useful ability. 4 turns is a great duration. Even if it was just for 1 turn, with a 4-turn cooldown, it would still be very potent and powerful. It would be very useful in situations where one party member is exposed to an awful amount of damage that is coming their way, and you can shield them briefly, allowing the other heroes to focus on a different problem, and then come round and help their friend. Mirage sounds very useful. I'm not sure entirely. I don't think it's going to have any out-of-combat applications. And Dazzle, lowering prowess and awareness. So prowess is the accuracy of attacks, the ability to land blows. Awareness in combat generally governs initiative. The characters with the higher awareness acting earlier, and the characters with the lower awareness acting later. Traditionally, the Trickster has the highest awareness. The Enchanter, I think it is, has slightly lower awareness, possibly, with the Sage and the Warrior being in the middle. Although the Enchanter often has the same awareness as the Sage and Warrior, just it might dip a little bit at times. I can't remember entirely. So having a half damage ability, having an ability to half damage for even if it's only one party member, is incredible. The Sage's place. The Warrior brings steel. The Enchanter brings spellcraft. The Trickster brings guile. The Sage brings balance. Healer, seer, monk, and mystic. From the cloisters of Caxos to the spires of Opala, they prove that the greatest weapon is neither blade nor spell, but mastery of the self. Smell might be a very powerful weapon. Clearly, odd little spoonerism there. Now, let's talk about healing. In the original books, I have book 1 and book 5 and the book 5 reprint here. Alright. So original book 1 to 4, the healing ability remains the same, just the page layout is slightly different. You can use this psionic ability at any time except during a combat. When you attempt to heal, you decide how many points of endurance you are going to use. You deduct these from your endurance, then roll 1 die minus 2, and multiply this by the number of points you have expended. The result is the healing energy in the form of endurance points that you are able to draw from the cosmic flux. These points may be distributed as you wish among the players, including yourself. No player can increase his or her endurance above its initial score, of course. We have an example for how this works, and then negative results on the die of 1 die minus 2 are counted as 0, as mentioned earlier. Your power of healing is always a gamble, though, because you might roll 1 or 2 on the die and thus get back no points from the cosmic flux. Now, there is no previous mention of negative results counting as 0 unless... No, it's just... That's okay, though. Now, at the end of book 4, before going into book 5, this changed. The much more experienced high-rank sage in book 5, who had gone through a special quest in book 4 with special rewards for all the heroes, the sort of thing that would essentially equate to spending lots of points in the skill tree in this new version. Oh, look, we've got this here. Yes, I know. It changes to 1 die minus 1, which means the probability of no healing is halved, and the ability to gain 5 times the amount spent has appeared in its place, instead of the ability to gain 4 times the amount. So, an example of how this works. Here we have an encounter from book 5 or 4. This is the book 5 file, but it still had some for book 4 maps in it for some reason. Actually, this is from book 3, I think. Here we have our heroes. Just, placeholder portraits. I didn't want to spend the time to change them to the official Bloodsword portraits from the series just yet. So here is our warrior, Sir Alwyn, Brother Kern the Sage, Remy the Trickster, and Ariadne the Enchantress. They have defeated a foe who is invisible, but was a potent threat. And let's just line these up as they recover from battle. Oop. So, if we just zoom in a little, Ariadne is on full endurance, Brother Kern is on 12 out of 25, Remy on 27 out of 30, so he's pretty fine, really, and Sir Alwyn on 12 out of 30. So, in my experience in the classic series, it was rarely worth sacrificing more endurance points than the current book title. Or was it double the current book title? I think it was double the current book title. So, Brother Kern, in this situation, will sacrifice 4 endurance points. So, we would reduce his endurance down to 8. Then we would roll 1 die. Minus 2. And with a result of 1, we would regain 4 points of endurance. We would spread those about as we wish. We could put 2 on Sir Alwyn, 1 on Remy, 1 on Brother Kern, or give them all back to Brother Kern and have him try again. So then I'd spend those 4 again and say, come on, I can roll better than this. 4. So that is 4 4s are 16. So we would give 4 back to Brother Kern, taking him up to 12. 1 to Remy to take him to 28. So that's 5 spent. 4 to Sir Alwyn, taking him to 16. So that is 9 spent of our 16 health, which gives us 7 more. So if we gave 4 of those, no, 5 to Brother Kern, we would have, 8, 11, 12, 16. Okay. Because 8 plus 11 is... So there we've spent all our 16 points, right? 4 to Sir Alwyn, 1 to Remy is 5, and 11 to Brother Kern. So then our heroes would be in a better shape to continue their adventure and face the next threat, and Brother Kern could continue to keep healing. Although we'd have to beware of those possible low rolls where no health would be returned whatsoever. Now, in the Book 5 reprint, we still have the 1d6 minus 1, but the rules in the reprint are slightly different. You can use this ability once each time you turn to a new section, except when the section you've turned to involves a combat. When you attempt to heal, then it's the same. Now, the original one, it could be used at any time except during combat. However, there was no stipulation or limit on the amount of times per section, or numbered paragraph, you could attempt healing. I seem to recall, when I played through the series on my YouTube channel a while ago, I limited myself to healing once per section out of combat, which did lead to a few times when we entered combat with slightly less than full health. Now you can imagine if Brother Kern were to sacrifice a large amount of health and roll very low, such as here, it could be a problem. And theoretically the Sage could just keep rolling at the same section without turning to anywhere. Now, this is a tricky system to implement for a computer. Let us pretend for a moment we have some kind of menu situation that looks like this, where every time you go to a new section there is a "Do you want to heal" button, and the Sage can click the healing button, and it opens up some kind of menu like this with some kind of holy grail or chalice and all 4 party members around it, and a plus and minus button at the bottom that says how many points do you want to put in, and you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever, and you'd see your Sage's health diminishing and the chalice would begin to fill, and then when you were ready you'd click the glowing gem near the top of the chalice or something, and it would be a sort of randomizer, and it'd go and it would sort of fill up, and then you'd have some points, and then you could sort of drag them off to people really slowly. That would look very pretty, but it would be rather clunky to implement and very it would be extremely disruptive to the adventure. Alright? Because you would need to have very explicit control over how many points went to each of your 4 heroes when they needed them. I do feel that whatever is done needs to give the user control over which hero gets the health, and you might even want to sometimes not fully restore the Sage's health because another hero is in such great need. If this healing free of 3, if we presume this is the healing ability as it looks most likely, or even 0 of 2, if either of those is the healing ability, then we could have a healing ability that scales, restores some endurance to allies, channeled through the cosmic flux. Now, even if Now this is where it gets tricky, right? So let's say the full system is not implemented, but some kind of alternative, because for a computer game you might want it to be a bit simpler. Maybe you do something like the healing ability from Lone Wolf, where you simply regain 1 endurance point per section without any dice rolls being involved. And in this case, with a skill that ramps up to 3, it could be 1 point a section, 2 points a section, 3 points a section, but it could be even more than that, right? And that could be everyone heals that much, just a flat rate. Although we do have mention of the cosmic flux, so it may fluctuate. I feel it would still be nice to be able to control who gets the healing, because if someone's at full health and doesn't need any, it could go to any of the others. I think I want to have a little chat with a developer at some point about his plans for the healing ability. And you know what? Honestly, it's so early in development that the plans might not be that firm just yet. Although next time we start pulling up maps and showing stuff on the screen, it will probably be okay to start using the artwork from the game. It depends, you see, because the Fabled Lands series was a very faithful representation, with changes made where necessary to adapt. And this is an adaptation, so we can expect... It's not that change is necessary, or that we can expect change for change's sake. But for the sake of the modern gaming audience, that healing ability might either need you to just... I mean, even if it's as simple as, before clicking the section you want to go to, if you right-click on it, that sacrifices a point of endurance. And you could right-click multiple times and then turn to the new section. It would tell you how many points you get back. But it's not just the deciding how many healing points you sacrifice, but also how many points are redistributed, and control of that. It is possible that this healing ability could become an in-combat healing ability. And that feels as if it rather goes against the grain of the Bloodsword series. Now, Bloodsword was heavily inspired by Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 1st edition, in which you simply did not heal in combat. You might drink a potion, but potions had a random onset time as your body digested the healing potion. If you were in a fight and were getting badly hurt, if the person healing you took damage before the spell was finished, and the spell would take like half a round, so they could easily take damage. It would take 5 combat segments out of your 10-segment round. Actually, it would take more than that, because it would take d6 plus 5, so it could even go into the next round. And if anything struck them a blow before then, they'd take damage, and you wouldn't get healing either. So you'd both be getting hurt, essentially. So you would just not heal in a fight. You would fight until the end, and you'd run away or surrender or be victorious. Then you would apply your healing afterwards, when you had time to rest and recover from the whole squabble and struggle. And in the classic Bloodsword series, you would not be able to perform healing abilities during combat. It was just too slow. You know, the sage needed to meditate and get out his medical supplies and take care of everybody. It wasn't the sort of slap a cure-light wounds on him and he'll be fine in the next combat round sort of thing. It's possible that this may be an in-combat healing ability, which would drastically alter the dynamic of many of the fights throughout the series. The fact we see bandages wrapped around the hand does give me the impression that this will involve sacrificing health. I would like to know what you think of possible ways of handling a healing mechanic. It could be a static number. It could be It could even be something like going to the Sage's character sheet and clicking a healing button that no other character class has. But then again, if every character can spend points on every skill tree, how available will this be to other characters? Because each ability will have requirements that not all characters will be able to meet. For instance, this Mirage ability sounds like something the Enchanter would like to be able to perform. Likewise, the Warrior would probably love the Mantra of Salvation. But this looks like higher level abilities which only the Sage would have access to. So you could have a stationary thing where all heroes receive a set amount per section. Or you could literally have it tied to the section, where some sections would give 1, some sections would give 2, some sections would give 3, multiplied by the level of the hero's healing ability, based on if it's a short, based on if they have a long period between fights or a short period between fights. Because if there's 2 fights close together and they're both very dangerous, you would want a lot of healing in between. So those sections in between would be 3 points of healing per section, per party member, right? And if it's a long period between fights with maybe a few side encounters, then maybe it's just 1 per, That's an interesting way to look at it. So yeah, I will see if I can have a chat with the developer at some point and find out what ideas he has for implementing the healing ability, because it's one of the hardest abilities to translate across to a computer game format without bogging down the game with micromanagement and getting really, really clunky. The worst part of it all is, of course, with the degree of micromanagement involved in the original healing system, which is a good healing system, it's a fun game mechanic, but the amount of micromanagement involved for it, there would need to be a way to translate that into the computer game. So that would involve buttons and menu options that simply wouldn't need to exist if the Sage was not part of the game. And so we ask the question, is it worth having this in the game at all? And is there a simpler way of doing this? So I imagine that whatever healing ability the Sage gets will differ significantly from the original version in some way. I don't know exactly how, but I look forward to finding out. And with that, I think I'll leave this episode here, although do feel free to share your views and opinions on this set of skills to the comments section down below. Let me know what you think about other characters having access to some of these skills. Even if it's at mind over body, I'm sure the Warrior would love that, Which of these are more suitable? I mean, the Trickster probably shouldn't get Exorcism, for example, right? Premonition also in the books was pretty much Sage only. If the Enchanter could get Premonition, that would be interesting. Because it's archetypally, it's more the sort of thing you might expect the Enchanter to have. Alright, well, I'm going to leave this episode here. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and I'll look forward to seeing you all next time I have some more news about the Bloodsword series. I'll say goodbye for now, though, and cheerio, everyone. See you all soon.